I remember watching this show when I was young. I loved it. It meant the world to me. I looked forward to it. It was a place I could go to stop being in the place I was in, and it felt peaceful. Now, the reason for this is because I didn't really grow up in what one would call peaceful. Most homes have a baseline of peaceful with occasional spikes of drama. My house was a baseline of drama with occasional spikes of peaceful. And one of those peaceful spikes was this TV show. It felt normal and welcoming and safe. It was consistent. The characters always acted like their characters. You could count on them. I remember having these feelings without really understanding those feelings, but it was like a little rest stop for me in what was a fairly chaotic upbringing. Who knows how mom or dad are going to show up today, how they behave. But I knew these characters. They were going to show up, and they were going to show up in the way they always did. And I needed that. I look back on it now, and it was my way of self soothing, which was good in the moment, but not good in other ways. I mean, the whole thing about self soothing is you're supposed to be able to do it for yourself. Sit with your feelings, let them be okay to have. Know they will pass. Training the little wee brain that you should look for outside soothing, well, that was a domino that definitely kept falling into my adulthood until I realized that was what I was kind of doing. But I was a kid, and I was looking for a little peace. So that was that. Instant peace. Side note, I grew up in a house where TV was called the idiot box, and the only acceptable shows were like National Geographic things like mating bugs and weird amoebas, that kind of deal. Anyway, what I remember most was when the show finally ended. I remember bursting into tears. I think I felt sadder than I'd ever felt before. And even at that age, I remember having one of those little weird out of body experiences where I was like, hey, kiddo, it's just a show. Get a hold of yourself, man. But I felt inconsolable. I think I remember going out to the barn and fighting imaginary demon spirits with my lightsaber just to let off a little steam. That kind of thing, It's complicated. Kid there. Okay. Anyway, my point, the actual point to this, is the show wasn't just a show to me. And I think that's why, when I read an article recently about why people sometimes become more sad over a show ending than a friendship, I understood. At first, the headline made me a little judgy, like, well, they certainly don't have their values in place, blah, blah. But then the realization sort of dribbled through my cerebral cortex, or whatever cortex realizations live in. And I flashed back to the show from my childhood, and I got this lump in my throat because I thought of that show and what that show meant to a kid who was looking for a little stability, a little likability, and consistent people to mirror back some sense of overcoming things and hope. And I kind of felt like a dick for being so judgy initially. I was humbleized or humanized. I got off my high horse and I sat down at the campfire with the rest of the people from that article, and I related to them. You see, I spent time with those characters from the show that I loved. I built bonds with them. I felt a loss when they were gone. I've had the same feeling with books, but somehow that sounds more okay to me, like, you're a reader, more acceptable, yay. I do love books, but that's not the point. Side note, there's actually a term for this phenomenon. PSD, post-series depression. I'm not sure how I feel about them giving it a word, but just for this thing, I'm okay. Just going to go with it. The other thing is people tend to anchor their lives in a show. If it goes on for a while, life changes. They change. The arc of the show can parallel their own life arc. I think for me at that age, maybe my sadness came from feeling like all this growth and change had occurred in this show I loved, but I was still standing still. So I felt left behind. Part of that is being a kid, not in control of your life. And part of that is being in a household where people weren't dealing with their shit or seeing how said shit impacts little hearts and minds. I kind of think it's extraordinary that human beings can do that, especially when you're a kid and you don't know any of this. You just know that this thing is missing and you need it. So you use some internal divining rod to find it. And maybe it doesn't meet the expectation of what others have, but you pivoted. You used scotch tape and you made the things stick together until you found something that could hold things together better. It's like we keep learning how to pivot and fix, hopefully upgrading and learning as we go, hopefully understanding what is a temporary fix and what is a long term solution. I still today like to listen to shows like their podcasts while I'm doing mindless things. I, it still gives me comfort, but I also know that there's a lot of value in silence. And I know that when I'm stressed or worried, I often default to having some other character's story unfold in my mind rather than deal with my own quiet. And that is definitely something I'm working on. It can be scary, and it's okay. It's okay to want to feel comfortable or peaceful. And it's different now. When you're a kid, you kind of fold into the crazy or the normal of your parents' lives. You don't have a lot of choice. But when you're an adult, you can choose. You can go out and make your life. So those characters help me get through a period of crazy to a place where I can now choose to go fight demon spirits because it's fun as opposed to letting off steam and it being a reaction to my favorite show being canceled. That's all for now. Bye bye.